Oh, yes.
Welcome back once again, everyone. Today, we're finally getting a look at the new Transformers War for Cybertron trilogy, Autobot Bumblebee, from Netflix. This Bumblebee is probably the most sought-after toy in this new wave, judging by the fact that he's the first one to fly off the shelves whenever they stock these. And he's also a bit of an oddity because he is a very heavy retool of the Earthrise Cliffjumper mold, but reshelled in a way to give him his classic Volkswagen Beetle alt mode. Now that's odd because Bumblebee in the TV show, War for Cybertron, doesn't have a Volkswagen Beetle alt mode. He doesn't even have an Earth-based alt mode. So he, like Soundwave, are kind of oddities in this, that they seem to be a little ahead of their time as far as, you know, where the show is at and where it will likely be by the end. So personally, that does give me a suspicion that figures like him and like the new Netflix Soundwave might have been planned for either Earthrise or Kingdom or, you know, something else down the line, and then they just didn't have room anymore, so they just put them in Netflix. Because they don't share that whole battle damage motif that a lot of the Netflix toys do. Of course, that's just my theory. There's no way to confirm it, unless Hasbro decides to come out and say something about it. But they are oddballs in the set. Anyway, if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at Bumblebee's packaging. We'll open it up. We'll see his instructions. We'll see his piece of the Teletran 1 background. And we'll see Bumblebee himself in both vehicle and robot modes. There will be a good number of group shots and comparisons for this review. And then at the end, I'll be giving my final thoughts. So Bumblebee comes in your standard Netflix-branded War for Cybertron packaging. See our little character front and center. Still a very, very small deluxe, which gets fleshed out a little bit by including the same old bazooka weapon that all of his mold mates do. Which, man, I wish they'd come up with something different. Like, why do all these little mini-bots have bazookas? It was kind of cool the first time, but it's getting a little bit old now. You turn this to the side, and you get this nice artwork of B. And this is interesting because most of the Netflix toys are just redecos of their, you know, Siege or Earthrise variations. Well, this is the first time we're getting a War for Cybertron Bumblebee, so this is actually all new. And you can kind of tell the difference, too. It's in a somewhat different art style than the others. It's less grainy, and it looks very nice. Actually, this is a really beautiful bit of artwork on Bumblebee here. I like it. Then on the back, you get your renders of Bumblebee in the robot and vehicle modes. It takes 20 steps to transform. The renders make him look more orange than he is in real life. Luckily, they kind of toned it back a little bit, and he's not quite that citrusy. But, you know, the renders are pretty faithful otherwise to the finished product. And then you get your Netflix Earthrise side panel. All right, here's our look at Bumblebee's Teletran 1 backdrop piece. And you can see this one's got quite a bit going on. Lots of different monitors. You got some sort of like a, I don't know, radar thing here. It says target and some sort of little blip. And yeah, just a pretty good cross section if you were standing ground level and looking forward at the whole console area of Teletran 1. Very cool looking. And here we have Bumblebee's instructions. See, this got this nice big render of him on the front here. His name. And then you have, it just goes right into your transformation from robot to vehicle mode. Flip it around. This shows you how to do the, like, weaponized vehicle mode with the big old cannon on the top here. Not quite as cool as Cliff Jumpers because it's got, like, some weird kibble issues, but it's okay. And this shows you how to use, like, the little rocket ski configuration as well. And over here, you get instructions for how to use his backpack as a shield. Shows you how to make him hold his big bazooka weapon. How to assemble, disassemble the weapon, have him hold it in different configurations. And, you know, there's more to it than just these. You can do it a few different ways. So, nice and thorough, which is really good. They don't leave you hanging as far as, you know, different features for the toy. So, you can't always say that about these things. All right, we're going to start this look at the vehicle mode with the little rocket ski configuration. So, you can see you got little, like, skis or sleds on the front, rocket boosters, and then pointless storage of an extra piece. So, you know, that's what that looks like. Let's go ahead and remove it for now. Just Pull these off. Pull this guy off. And let's get these little skis out here for a moment. So we can just see a nice clean vehicle mode. And look at that. That does look a lot like his cartoon vehicle mode, though a little less compact, a little less penny racer, closer to the real thing. And a couple things to notice about this. For one, it's got the Volkswagen logo right there on the hood of the car, so very cool. This is an officially licensed toy after all. It's got a lot of paint apps. It's got silver paint on that emblem. It's got silver paint on the windshield wipers, on the handles there, silver paint on the hubcaps. You got silver for the headlights instead of clear, which is better than nothing. Red taillights. The only thing they really don't paint is the license plate section. They just leave that blank as if he doesn't have a plate. So overall, he's very well painted. That's something about this mold. It gets a lot of paint most of the time. It's probably because it's small. They can put a little more of the budget toward painting. Now, two things to really point out. He's a lot more orange than most Bumblebee releases. Bumblebee's typically a brighter yellow. This guy actually comes off as being a lot closer to the Masterpiece toy, which I will be showing off. And then you also see that the Autobot symbol is right here on the front of the car. Now this is accurate to Bumblebee's animation model, but in the animation, when he transforms, this like mysteriously vanishes and he gets one right here, which becomes his robot chest. Now, I don't know why they chose this location for the symbol. Like, I get it's cartoon accurate for the vehicle mode, but typically, you know, you kind of favor the robot mode with accuracy, and that would have been better served right here. Plus, that's where it's located on the classic toy. So, decisions were made, and I don't always understand those decisions. But it is what it is. Now, if we want to take a look at this thing's like weaponized mode, what we're going to do, we are going to lift and remove the back kibble portion from the vehicle. So you just kind of work that up. Be careful because it is all transparent plastic. Don't want to break it. And it's being held on by his robot fists. So you got to kind of wriggle it out of there. And I recommend just kind of taking the time to do it slowly and carefully. All right, so you do that. This little flip out peg here, you're going to flip it horizontally like so. Set this aside for a moment. And you're actually going to open this up a bit, separate the arms. You're going to lift the arms up and kind of invert them from their vehicle mode position, like this. Close this back up. And you're going to plug the vehicle rear back on, like so. All right, so you get this weird looking thing. Then you're going to put his weapons together in their bazooka configuration. So in case you're rusty on that, basically plug the silver halves together, hold this up, plug it into the back, like so. And then use these little ski looking pieces, plug them in this way, with these little ridges facing back. All right, you get that. And then it's got a hole in the back. You're going to plug it onto that peg right here. It might be a little difficult. Let's see how much give it's got, how much it wants to cooperate. Oh, okay. Snaps on pretty easily. So then you kind of straighten everything out as best you can. Try to get nice and even, pointing forward. And here you go. This is his little armed up weapon vehicular mode, whatever you want to call it. And I'm not gonna lie, it's absolutely silly looking. It really is. Don't like it. The reason you have to do this, as opposed to just connecting the bazooka to the top of the car, is because you can see the top doesn't have a 5mm port. Or, I guess really this piece, right? And that is a function of the retooling that was done. So they had to get a little creative with how you were gonna do this. This is the option they went for. It is a lot more reminiscent of the movie vehicle modes from like Dark of the Moon, where they would kind of split apart and have weapons come out. Look like some sort of hybrid of a robot and vehicle mode. So, yeah, personally it's not for me. This isn't the way I would display the vehicle mode. But it is an option if you just want to have Bumblebee very heavily armed and ready to kind of move and shoot at the same time. Okay, here's our first group shot, and this is going to be with Bumblebee's mold mates. So you have the original use right here, Cliff Jumper. Then he has a minor retool in the form of Hubcap. We get Bumblebee's evil twin, the GoBot mercenary character Bugbite, and then Bumblebee himself. Now, one of the first things you may notice is that Bumblebee's vehicle mode ends up being a lot smaller than these. Because of the massive reshelling they do to make him look more like an actual Beetle, which is a generally, pretty small car, he ends up being quite a bit shorter than the more Porsche-like mold mates. So it's very interesting. It's really impressive to see just what they can do with all this remolding. Now, you might find it odd that Bugbite, despite being like a recolor of Bumblebee, is in this case not the same vehicle mode. And it's a bit odd because he's normally always a recolor of Bumblebee. But if, I were to speculate, it's probably because Volkswagen doesn't like their cars, their designs being used for evil characters. They're a bit skittish about that. So I can only imagine that, in order to get the official licensing, they wouldn't be allowed to put that design on a bad character, so they had to go with the Porsche body. It's a shame. I really would have preferred a white Beetle. Would have been nice if he had the purple designs on him too from the Classics toy, but, that's a different review, different time. But the Bumblebee ends up looking really cool and very different from his mold mates. And again, that's retooling done right. When you can retool something to the point where you can't even tell it's the same toy. I dig that. Now here's a group shot with the other purely G1 Bumblebees. You have, G1 Bumblebee. And then you have the Masterpiece toy. The first one, the only one that matters. We don't acknowledge the existence of that flip-flop wearing abomination that they call 2.0. But you can see just how very similar these two are. War for Cybertron has been touted as being like mini Masterpiece, and this guy's a really good example of that. When you look at a lot of the car details, they really nail it. Like the hood section, it's got like the little vents, the Volkswagen symbol, the hubcaps look right. It's got like the little bumper. I mean, yeah, it is really spot on. He's missing a few details, right? He's missing the, no, never mind. He's got the side view mirror, and it's just one. I didn't notice that. Good detail. It's not painted black, so it doesn't stand out, which is why I missed it, but boy, that is really good attention to detail. It's got the one mirror. Doesn't have this, but this is really kind of an extra anyway. That's to make him look a little more cartoon accurate. But you can always remove that and just have a license plate there, which stores in there. But again, that's a review for another time, if I ever decide to review Masterpiece Bumblebee. He really exemplifies the mini Masterpiece aesthetic very, very well. Even the window color is pretty close. A little lighter, but close. And you can see that these guys both use the animation-accurate Autobot symbol on the hood. However, with the Masterpiece toy, he's engineered to have the roof of the car, this little panel flip over and have there be an Autobot symbol on the top so that it can be on his chest. Granted, that's a little beyond the budget of this $20 Deluxe, but personally, if I had to choose between one of the two symbols, I would have gone with the one on the roof because I just like it more. This is the original Bumblebee had it, like I said, and it just works better for the robot mode, even if it looks silly in car mode, because who would put that on the roof of their car? I always favor robot modes. Now, I was talking about the coloring. Like I said, the orange-yellow, almost like a mustard yellow color that is used here is almost identical to the one used for Masterpiece, and is much darker than the very bright yellow of the original Bumblebee toy, and really most Bumblebee toys. The vast majority of them opt for a very bright yellow like this. So, personally, I would have preferred if his colors were a bit closer to this guy, and that he did use the roof-mounted Autobot symbol. But I do like the high level of detail that he gets from the Masterpiece toy. And one last group shot before transformation. We have the most recent G1-based Bumblebee toys that have come out, at least in, a main line. So in the middle, you have Thrilling 30 Bumblebee, which is based off of his old IDW Comics design, which was very cool. Then you get Titans Return Bumblebee, which was a new take on the character that, kind of aimed for the classic appearance, but more sports car-like alt mode. Now again, our new guy uses a much more orange shade of yellow than these dudes. These stick with the classic bright yellow. And you can see he is much, much smaller than this other toy, which is also a deluxe and was actually cheaper because it came out years ago. He's actually much closer in size to the Legends class toy. He's only a little bit bigger. And I know it's a huge sticking point with people over this mold is, you know, whether or not it's actually worth $20. And I've talked about it at length, and, you know, if you think it's worth it, probably not going to change your mind. If you don't think it's worth it, you're probably not going to change your mind at this point. So, you know, it's annoying. It really is. I think for the amount that he costs, even with like the bazooka accessories, I think they should have given us a bit more. Like actually included his little blaster instead of making it part of an accessory pack. But I digress. So it is cool just kind of seeing how they've changed and improved the Bumblebee design in the Generations line, because these do all fall under Generations as a whole. And how we've gone from kind of like a really out there take to something a little closer to home to like G1 perfection. Nailing that Volkswagen Beetle mode. Alright, it's transformation time. Now, normally, I don't show a transformation more than once for a certain mold, just to avoid redundancy. But because he is so heavily retooled, I figure it's worth just giving another go. Though the steps are largely the same. So if you haven't already, remove all of his accessories, set them aside. And we're going to start him off the same way as the other versions of the mold. You're just going to remove his little rear bumper / shield piece, whatever you want to call it. Wriggle it free from the hands. He really holds these tightly compared to the other ones. Alright, so you got that. Separate the halves of the car hood, also known as the feet. If they'll let me. Okay, there we go. Kind of pull him loose. Like untab this door from the side of his leg. Same thing here. It's a lot tighter than the other versions, that's for sure. All right, get it loose. There we go. All right, bring these down. Kind of point his feet inward a bit for clearance. Swing these out to the side. All right, then we want to swing these legs all the way down and rotate 180 like so. Gonna flip the wheels in. These little Volkswagen hubcaps, isn't that cool? Bring the feet down. You're going to swing the doors around and make sure this tab goes into one of the holes on his hubcap. Like so. Okay, you're going to pull the car roof section and windshield down. Flip that hood in. Bring these all the way up. And close it to help lock these panels in place. And we'll readjust the arms. So bring them down, rotate them. Same thing here. All right. So this is the base robot mode for Bumblebee. And then you have some options, right? You have his little shield or backpack. Now, personally, I don't like the empty back look for him. Bumblebee's always got kind of a little bit of a backpack. So I like plugging this on here. And unfortunately, because it's a different shape, it doesn't stay on and like stay like straight and even as well as the cliff jumper version. It's got some wiggle room. It's unfortunate, though surprisingly like the Masterpiece toy, whose backpack doesn't really plug in either. And then of course you can choose what to do with his weapons, right? You can do like the standard bazooka configuration if you'd like. You can have him do the shield if you want. I'll show you that. Like so. Very loose compared to the other pegs. This thing just kind of swings around too much. I think it's best to keep it here, honestly. Get in there. All right. Wish I would be more even. So you can do that, or you can break up his weapons, right? Separate everything out. You can attach this to his shoulder via that little slot there. Now I gotta say my son's copy, because I did get him one for Christmas, his little gun won't stay tabbed into the shoulders. I don't know if this notch is too wide or the shoulders are too narrow, but he has some tolerance issues. Luckily, my copy doesn't have that. I will also point out that his copy and my copy both seem to suffer an issue where you can see the eyes are a very, very light blue, which normally wouldn't seem like a problem, except there's a lot of copies out there that have a much deeper blue for the eyes, and honestly better looking. So I don't know if they're variants, if one's a factory error. I'm assuming if there's an error, it's probably the paler one because it looks a little off. But it is what it is there. I did this backwards. Fix it. All right, so you can give them, more of a dual wielding look like this, which personally I dig. I think it works for him. Or if you're cool and you own the accessory pack with the Centurion drone, you can give Bumblebee his classic cartoon-inspired blaster, done up in a dull gray color because most of those accessories were not painted. So this is no exception, and it does clash because it should be at least black, if anything. Now, obviously, he's only got so many hands, so you got to, kind of decide how you're going to make it all work. You can reconnect this into a bazooka, hold that in one hand. One solution I like, because I don't think the bazooka really works for Bumblebee, is attach these to his forearms. Give him little forearm-mounted guns. And then, put that there. You know what? I'll actually put this on this side so it works out a little better. Doesn't have all his weapons on one side. Alright. I dig it. I like the way this looks. So yeah, you can give him his classic blaster if you'd like to. Now, the thing that really bugs me about this guy, and I know I keep bringing it up, there's no faction symbol on his chest, and it just looks wrong. I mean, Bumblebee, he's always got that Autobot symbol right there on his torso, and it really bugs me that it's not there. Like him more than any of the others. Now, on one hand, you could say that, it's accurate because Bumblebee does go all of Siege without a faction symbol since he's unaligned. But being realistic, this isn't Siege Bumblebee, right? Even though it's released in the Netflix line, this is G1 Bumblebee. He's got the Volkswagen alt mode. He's nowhere near sharing the same design with the actual CGI model from the show. If anything, the Titans Return version comes a little bit closer to that look than he does. Now, as far as your posability tolerances, all that, everything feels really good on him. The head feels great. Waist does, shoulders, all that. Some parts are a little bit tighter than I'd like, but not enough to really bug me. The only real issue I have is his backpack. I feel that this peg is a bit too loose, too slim, so it's too prone to kind of wobbling. The fact that this doesn't go flush against his back, so it wants to kind of be crooked. And the loose peg also creates issues when you want a shield, because it just flops around. So the shield piece is the only problem I have. And it might not be that way for everybody, right? I already said that the tolerances for this little shoulder gun are different between my copy and my son's, so this might be different for you and hopefully a bit more solid than mine. And yeah, overall, he just looks great. I still think he should have been bright yellow, or at least a brighter yellow than what we got. But as far as the shape of the character, the proportions, he looks so good. He is a mini masterpiece Bumblebee. Okay, here we get our group shot with the other mold mates again, this time in robot mode. And despite the huge size difference in the vehicle mode, these guys all end up being roughly the same height. Now you can see I have these guys in different weapon configurations. These are my personal preferred configurations for each one. So you got Cliffjumper with a bazooka and his glass gas cannon from the accessory pack. Hubcap with also bazooka and his shield out. Bugbite dual wielding. And then Bumblebee using his blaster and then, using his little cannons as wrist mounted weapons. Of course, you could always do whatever you want. You might notice that Bugbite sticks out like a sore thumb because he is the only one who got the faction symbol in the right place. And that is the only right place, and my mind cannot be changed on that. Looking at these, I think I get why his shield section is so hard to remove from the fist in vehicle mode. If you look here, the posts are full circular posts, whereas on Bugbite and the other Porsche versions, they're actually semicircles that are cut off for less friction. So yeah, that seems to be a downside of this version, is that there's a bit too much friction on those posts when you're trying to remove them from his hands. So that's a shame. And I'm also thinking, you notice Bumblebee's not the only yellow character here, right? We have Hubcap. And I do wonder if maybe they gave Bumblebee the more orange color just to make him more distinct from Hubcap or less confusing. It's possible, I don't really know for sure. Originally the two toys were pretty much the same color, so maybe they just want to distinguish them a bit. But it does still look weird. He's just way too orange. I will say it is very nice seeing Bee and Cliffjumper together in a toy line again, but without just being simple recolors of each other. Like, they're mold made, sure, but there's a lot of heavy retooling between them. And I love that they are distinct while still both harboring that mini-bot feel. So I really dig that. Here's our other group shot with the pure G1 Bumblebees. We have the original, or more accurately, the Walmart vintage one with the retooled head to be more cartoon accurate. Then you got our Masterpiece guy, new War for Cybertron Bumblebee. And again, the similarities between the Masterpiece and the new Deluxe are striking. There are differences. Their transformation isn't exactly the same, but there are a lot of key similarities. They both utilize the whole, like, door folding in around the feet gimmick. Him a little more so, but the idea is still there. You know, the tires flip in. They have the backpack, which is the rear of the car. Now, the Masterpiece, his backpack's not detachable. It's on this, like, complicated little armature device thing, which is a lot better than parts forming, in my opinion. But again, budget. You know, this is like a $60 toy. This is $20. And he does some things better, right? The flip-out Autobot symbol. Proportions are a little bit better. And you will notice that their windshields are flipped upside down from one another. His windshield's down here at the bottom of the belly. His is up on his chest there. So there are some key differences. And yes, the Masterpiece, I would say, is a better toy. But again, big difference in budget. For a $20 version, I think this is adequate. And then you can see his little mini version here, just to see where it all started from. And yeah, it's neat. Any one of these, you can look at it and you'll know exactly who the character is. And that's kind of the idea, right? You're always going to have slight differences as they reinvent the wheel and come up with ways to make modernized versions of these characters. But as long as you can look at that and be like, that is definitely Bumblebee, I'd say it was a success. And here's our last group shot. And you might notice the new addition here. I completely forgot to include the Classics Bumblebee toy in the vehicle lineup, so I apologize for that. Though, this far in recording, I'm not going back. I've committed. Sorry. But you do get to see him here. And in case you're wondering, his vehicle mode is more like a PT Cruiser than a Beetle. But yeah, this is the design evolution of, what people would consider chug Bumblebees. There are some miscellaneous entries. There was like a little tiny, like, Legion class Bumblebee that was barely posable. No interest in it. It's too simple for my liking. So yeah, you get a short, stout Bumblebee from the Classics line. You get his rebuilt form from the comics. You get a more mini-bot size version to go with all of the mini-bots that were released during the Prime Wars trilogy. And then you get the new version, who's roughly mini-bot size, but does end up being a fair bit bigger than the Legends class mini-bots that he's supposed to, scale with. And that is an issue that he and Cliffjumper share, because they are deluxes, and, they are meant to be much closer in scale to the other members of War for Cybertron, which does necessitate them being a little bit bigger, because they are going for cartoon scale, not toy scale. Now, you may already know that the Classics Bee was basically everybody's go-to Bumblebee for a long time. It was the closest thing we had to his classic robot mode. And kind of like the Classics Optimus, he was just the stand-in chug Bumblebee for a very long time. Our Thrilling 30, again, it's supposed to be something unique and different. This, I think, became people's stand-in Bumblebee, the Times Return one, despite it being, in my opinion, one of the worst Legends class molds in the Prime Wars trilogy. Except maybe some of the cassettes. But I've never been a fan of him. But now, I think your wait's over. I don't know if we're ever going to get something better than this at this scale, in a regular retail line. I could be wrong. You never know. They might go and reinvent the wheel again later. Now, what I can see happening is a redeco of this toy. Probably Probably not in War for Cybertron, but like maybe whatever comes next, or it might be an exclusive. I can see them recoloring this guy to make him more yellow and move his like faction symbol around and stuff. It just seems inevitable that there's going to be like some cartoon accurate redeco of this toy. They do it all the time, right? You get the standard version, it's like, it's good enough and you're happy with it. And then they're like, oh, hey, cartoon colors version. And you're like, cool, cool. Glad I spent all this money just to spend more. But that's always your prerogative. If you want to fork out the dough again, in case they ever do make a more yellow Bumblebee. But for what we get, I'm very happy with this. Overall, I'm really impressed with the sheer level retooling that went into this guy. They didn't have to do it. A lot of people were skeptical. They didn't think they'd just reshell the whole vehicle, but they did, and the changes are very noticeable. Like I said, it really alters the size of that vehicle mode, makes it almost legend size. And it does change his silhouette in robot mode to the point to where he doesn't feel too samey, right? His chest is more rounded, the feet are more rounded, his backpack has more of a curvature to it. He's just unique amongst the Cliffjumper mold mates. Now, I will say, I'm not a fan of the fact that he comes with the same exact weapons that every other version of the mold does. It really doesn't work for him. A bazooka, Bumblebee, he's the little scout character. He doesn't typically wield big weapons. So I wish they would have done something else with the weapons. Maybe included the more, cartoon accurate blaster and just done some other kind of accessories on top to make up for the missing plastic. I don't know. I wasn't expecting anything else, but it would have been nice if they had retooled the weapons or replaced them or something. Do I think this is worth $20? As much as I do any other version of the mold, I'm still skeptical on whether or not this really is a $20 toy, but he is no less worthy than any other version. My personal preference, I'm not crazy about the color, not crazy about the faction sigil placement, but it's a minor gripe. This is, to me, the best Chug Bumblebee we've ever received. Of course, that is just my opinion. Now, what I want to know is what you all think of the new Netflix Bumblebee. Is he everything that you wish for in a Chug scale Bumblebee? Do you find him lacking? Is there a version you prefer over this guy? Any and all feedback's always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this look at the brand new Netflix War for Cybertron Deluxe Class Bumblebee. And with all that said, I will see you next time.